Hello and welcome Success Grid Nation to this new episode of the Success Grid podcast with your host Hossein Talib. My guest today, her name is Anastasia Lipske. She knows what it takes to book speakers and podcast guests. As the founder of Access Speakers, a full-service agency, she has booked over 1,500 engagements for her clients. She helps business owners brand themselves to generate more influence, awareness, and definitely more clients. Anastasia, welcome to the Success Grid podcast.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I love having the opportunity to talk about anything related to speaking, podcast guesting, how to get booked, all that kind of stuff, because it is my passion.
Awesome to have you. So, first of all, tell us about why are you passionate about this topic, podcasting and having guests on shows and this kind of medium of, let's say, business or marketing or
Sure.
being close to people, I would say also.
Well, it's kind of for a few reasons. One is that I see the value of it as a marketing tool. I actually strongly believe that speaking and now podcast guesting is one of the best marketing tools that's out there, in particular for people where they are the product, they are the service. Because when you are speaking or doing an interview on a podcast, people can get a sense for who you are and what you're about. It's almost like sample advertising, which is the most effective form of advertising that's out there, because they really are getting a taste, right,
Yeah.
for who you are and what you're about. And people will either resonate with you or not. So we can never have attachment to how people are going to respond. But when you are speaking and you are doing it from your heart and you're doing it to bless the audience, not to pitch your stuff, but to truly educate people about what you are a subject matter expert in, and one would assume passionate about, there are going to be people that are going to, in essence, resonate with what you're saying. And then they're going to want to work with you. If you, doesn't matter what it is, like if you sell widgets and you are out there educating people as to why they need widgets in their lives, not saying your widgets are the best, just widgets, get widgets. There are going to be people who are going to be like, oh my gosh, how was my life complete without having a widget in my life? And who do they want to get it from but the person that just educated them about it? So it's really, really powerful as a marketing tool. The other part of it is just that I'm a firm believer that if a person has something to share and it would be of value to the world, if they don't share it, they're doing the world a disservice.
Yeah.
Because they're holding it to themselves. And it may be something that can help people grow their business. It may be something that's going to help people in their personal lives, their relationships, their health, their spiritual space, like so many different things that people can talk about. And I love storytelling and I love hearing stories. And to me, this is just an extension of storytelling. But for some people, it's targeted, if you will.
Yeah.
You can use your storytelling in a very specific manner and be strategic in your storytelling that's going to help support you in your business growth. Or maybe you want to be a professionally paid speaker, but you got to pay your dues on the free circuit first. So when that happens, then, you need to get the visibility. You need to be out there. We all know that we like to buy from people we know, like, and trust.
Exactly. Yes.
And one of the best ways to develop that relationship, to build influence, gain credibility, all of that, not to mention the law of familiarity. So the more you're out there and the more people see your name, there is an assumed trust that comes with that. All of those things help support people in their business building or their path to becoming a professionally paid speaker, or just wanting to get their stories out there.
Yeah.
Because for some people, that's all it's about. So I love the platform.
So do you believe, or do you think that any kind of business, whatever it is, should have speaking engagements or having a podcast, any type of business?
I believe so, yes. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I was once doing a talk many, many years ago. It was for a Rotary Club. And I shared that, that I believe no matter what your business is, that you can be growing it through your speaking.
Yeah.
And there was this one table that started to chuckle, and I'm like, wait, what did I say? And they're like, well, yeah, not so-and-so here, because his business, there's no way speaking is going to help him with his business. I said, what is it? And they said, he has a funeral home, a mortuary.
Oh, okay.
And they said, like, all his clients are
That's
dead.
very interesting, actually.
Right. And I was like, wait a second. No, his clients are not dead. His clients are the people that have lost a loved one. So
Yeah.
what if you were to go out there and start, at least locally, talking about what to do to be prepared when the unthinkable happens? Because as someone who has personally lost people, my father's death was sudden. It was instant, heart attack, gone. We were not prepared to have to deal with the arrangements when you are in the midst of grief is really hard.
Yeah.
But what if he were to let people know the things that they might want to know ahead of time, so that they're prepared for it? All these different things, leave them with a checklist of the things to have in order before that were to happen. When that unthinkable thing happens, who are they going to call in your town? Is it going to be you, the person who had educated them about this ahead of time and that they connected with? Or are they going to go pick some other person? I'm going to date myself by saying out of the yellow pages, but let's say Google a local mortuary, and funeral home. No, they're going to go with the person who helped them be prepared.
Yeah.
And they were all like dumbfounded, like, oh, you're right. You're right. So I'm sure there is some industries that maybe it doesn't make sense, but I would have to say most people
Yeah. I agree
would
with you.
benefit from it.
Like most, like I don't want to put like a percentage on it, but like
Yeah,
a lot of businesses that can apply now, even nowadays, it's with the online thing, everything is online. So you can find a way to do that.
yeah,
You can educate people on certain things, like you mentioned the funeral home. It's who would think about that, but actually it could really help some people, actually.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So for example, if someone wants to be a guest, or from your perspective want to start speaking or these kind of things, what is the thing that should they niche down on their topic, or should they go like all over the place and start looking everywhere where they could be, or whatever?
I recommend niching down. Because especially in the digital world, where we are establishing our name and what it's connected to. So if you are a subject matter expert, and let's face it, many of us can speak on a lot of different things. I could talk about type 1 diabetes and the signs to look for it, so your kid doesn't have to be flown via helicopter into a children's hospital like I've experienced. Those kinds of things. Like, I can talk about a lot of different things that I would like to, because I want to educate the world, and I will, and I have done a little bit of that, but it's not where I focus, because I don't have a direct connection to my business per se. If you niche down, then you get to own that space with enough visibility out there. You, in essence, are establishing your name, yourself, as a subject matter expert. And it's too easy to get distracted, not to mention the fact that you can confuse people. So if they see your name out there and you're talking about a wide variety of things, that to me just kind of helps dissipate what you've already done. It also, especially in the podcast guesting world, because there's like millions of podcasts now.
Yeah, it,
I
it
mean,
grew a lot with the
kids do podcasting, they do their own, get them hooked up with Podbean and you're all set. You want to make sure that you are connecting to your potential audience, your potential people, potential clients, or at least who you want to get your message to. So you need to be really strategic in who you want to get in front of. And the only way to really do that is to be really clear on what it is that you really want to share about. My business mentor, Katarina Rando, she talks about not so much who you can serve, but who are you called to serve.
Oh, that's
And
good.
when you go about it from that viewpoint, right? I mean, that just changes everything, because we hopefully are servants. We hopefully are coming from a space of blessing whoever it is that we're going to share our message with, but
Yeah.
ultimately even our potential clients. So it really makes sense to really get clarity around that. I find like one of the best ways to get clarity around your own business and business model and the direction you want to head in is to come up with a one sheet for yourself as either a podcast guest or a speaker or both. Because when you have to define who you are and what you're about, it helps you get clarity in your own business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely recommend niching down.
Cool. I love this one sheet idea. I will get back to it later, but
Okay.
let's first say that someone or speaker or a podcast guest wants to find certain hosts or do speaking engagement. Where should they start?
The first place to start is with your current clients. Ask them what groups and organizations they are a part of that brings in outside guests, speakers. So you point blank ask them, you go and you communicate with them one by one, and just say, hey, I want to get more visibility to what I do. I want to do speaking, or I want to do podcast guesting. And so I'm starting by finding out where my clients are.
Mm.
Can you tell me, what meetings do you go to where they bring in outside speakers? And what podcasts do you listen to? So you start there by kind of polling your own clients and getting a sense for where they're showing up, because that's your demographic, right?
Yeah.
So you start there. Then the next thing you do is you reach out to your sphere of influence, starting small with your family and friends and the people who know you best. And then you start reaching out to all your business connections. You can reach out via LinkedIn, do private messages, Facebook, etc. And you ask the same question. You can do a generic email out to everybody on your e-list if you have one, and point blank ask them, tell them, people is surprising how much they're willing to help when you just really make clarity around the fact that this is what you want and that you're just asking for their recommendations and suggestions. If you can get them to introduce you to somebody, that's even better, because then it's not a cold reach out to that group or that podcast. But many of them, they may be participants, but they don't have any connection to that host or who is bringing the speakers in or someone like that. But at least you kind of have a list to start with. So
Yeah.
you start there by asking them, and then you just keep getting bigger with your circle. You share about it on social media. I'm looking to get booked to speak, and this is what I speak on. I'm looking to get booked on podcasts. This is what I love to discuss. Do you have any recommendations? So that's what so start immediately with the clients, your smaller sphere of influence, bigger, 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 and then just branch out from there.
Yeah, awesome. So, like you mentioned earlier, the one sheet, does this one sheet includes like, of course, gonna talk about the bio of the speaker or guest, what are their expertise, certain things. So when you tell your clients that you want them to have a one sheet, what do you tell them to in detail to have in it?
Okay. The most important thing is going to be your contact information. And believe it or not, I mean, I just saw a professional marketing company that shared a one sheet they created for the client that had no contact information.
You're joking, right?
No. And I was like, but his contact information is not on there. And they said, well, that's because it's being attached to our email and we're reaching out. So we don't really need to have that on there. And I said, no, if it gets separated from that email, keeping in mind that oftentimes when someone is tasked with booking a speaker, okay, they're the program chair, the meeting planner, whatever it might be, oftentimes they have other people they need to run potential speakers by. or maybe it's a producer of a podcast as opposed to the host themselves. It is not uncommon for it to somehow get separated. So contact information, how to reach you and book you is going to be really important. The key components to a really good one sheet is going to be your bio, your topic or topics, your if you are doing a podcast one sheet. So if okay, you can do a combo one sheet that would cover both podcasts and speaking. But if a person really wants to be strategic in doing both, I recommend having two, because it is a little bit different between the speaker and the podcast one. So with any of them, you're going to have your bio, you're going to have a headshot. If you have an action shot, you can show also of you actually with a microphone in your hand, or maybe, with, you can't see me right now, but I've got my headset on. So I do look like I'm doing a podcast, right? Instead of speaking. But, the microphone, you kind of set it up so it looks like a podcast. If you have an action shot, that's great as well. The bio is the other mistake people make, is that in their bio, they go too much, or the bio is fine. I'm sorry, let me backtrack. The bio, you want to talk about why you are credible, like why you are qualified to be speaking on this subject, whatever it might be.
So why are you the expert to talk about that?
I'm sorry?
So why are you the expert to talk about certain?
Exactly. So it's to establish credibility right from the get-go. So there's that. But then what happens that I see oftentimes is the testimonials that they add to the one sheet. Oftentimes people use testimonials about what they did for their clients. What you need to remember is that this is all about getting you booked. You're going to get the clients after you do the talk. You're going to get the clients after you do the interview. So this is about getting you booked. So your testimonials are about you as a speaker or you as a podcast guest. And that's why it's helpful to have two different sheets, because it is very different. The other thing you want to have is where you have spoken, where you have been interviewed on previous podcasts.
Yeah.
And one of the nice things is that because everything's digital now and we're all doing it, we're just sending a PDF off, you can continually change it. Back in the day, when we had to print out speaker sheets, and you print out 1,000 to get them cheap, and then you'd find that typo, or you change your mind on your topic, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I have to use all 1,000 of them because I paid so much money for that. Now, easy peasy, you update it because you're not going to list every single place you've ever spoken. That would be crazy. That would take up, if you're really doing it prolifically, that's going to take up a whole sheet. You want to pull out the groups and organizations that you have spoken to that are most in alignment with where you want to be booked. And same thing with the podcast guesting, where you've been interviewed, most in alignment with what types of shows you want to be booked on. So in the beginning, we all have to start where we are. Okay. And there may be some of your listeners who haven't done this at all. They haven't done one talk, they haven't done one podcast, and therefore they don't have testimonials and they don't have any places where they've spoken.
Yeah.
Fine, go with what you've got, but have your bio be really powerful, and what you speak on or what you talk about be very powerful. But the moment you start getting some of those, you start adding them so that you're establishing your credibility as a speaker and or a podcast guest.
Yeah.
So main things, just to kind of summarize again. So you've got a photo, professional, by the way. Okay. You are far better not having a podcast one sheet or a speaker one sheet that's done well than to do one that looks like you just threw it together in a Word document, or maybe you had your high schooler help you with it. Just don't. If it's worth spending the money to have a pro do it.
Like you mentioned, it's now easy to create one, for example, with Canva, I think. So
exactly,
you go there and create this one PDF size document, and I think now it already has like some templates already there for you. You can set up your image and your bios and your previous experience, interviews and these kind of things. So it's easier, like you mentioned now.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep,
so
yep, it
let me
is.
ask you about, for example, let's say the volume of the interviews that a guest or speaker should be looking at. What do you think is there an optimal amount of interviews that someone can do on a day, for example, for a podcast, or there's no optimal? So maybe two more, maybe 10 a day or whatever. So what do you think about this subject?
Well, as far as how many people, how many interviews a person does in one day,
Yeah.
your own capacity. I personally cannot do more than one a day because I have a lung condition. So like I put so much energy into this, and same thing when I do my speaker branding consulting, I make sure that I don't book any calls, Zooms, or anything that same day, because when I do things like this, I tend to put a lot of energy into it, and it wears my lungs out and I won't have a voice. So some people, they can talk till the cows come home, and it doesn't exhaust them. So it's really about your energy. We all have to gauge our energy very, very carefully. You and I, we're doing visual right now. Even if we were not, you would be able to pick up if my energy was waning. So it's really
Yeah.
important that a person be able to be fully up on it. The other thing that could happen, I don't know about other people, but you could start to easily confuse what you have and have not already said. Because if you are into your third interview of the day, you may change what you're saying because you can't remember, did I say that already? Or did I just think that I said that? So I personally would not recommend more than one a day myself.
Yeah.
Totally up to the person though.
Yeah, you have to check up with yourself and see maybe the optimal, maybe 1, 2, 3 maximum could be best for you. Maybe one, especially in the beginning when you are getting, let's say, the groove of it. You get
Yes,
used to
yes,
it, and you
yes.
have more podcasts or more speaking engagement with time. You will definitely get better. So it will be easier to do that, and you will know your limit, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
definitely. And speaking also is different to me. It's different than podcast guesting.
Yeah.
So podcast guesting is it's conversation. I love this. If I didn't have the issue with my lungs and my voice, I could do this all day because I love talking, and I love talking and learning from other people, etc. Speaking for me is very different because you have the certain key things that you need to cover, and you've got a time limit, like all these pressures. And I tend to have an outer body experience when I speak. So when I start speaking, I'm gone. I'm just gone. I thankfully record my talks, which, by the way, handy dandy little tip for anybody who is using speaking to grow their business. Always record it. Like literally, I will take my phone and I will just use my notes, and I have it off to the side listening to myself, because then if it's an in-person, I literally listen in the car on the way home, or if it's virtual, I listen to it afterwards, because you want to, while it's fresh in your mind, hear what you sounded like. And then you upgrade the next time you do the talk. So you're catching what you did or didn't like, or you might tweak how you present something. And that's one of the best ways to do it. For me also, because I have an outer body experience and I don't remember most of what I said, having the recording is very, very helpful. So I definitely would not be able to do more than one talk a day.
So you have to check up with yourself and see
Yeah, it's
when
very
when
personal.
your energy when it's about, like you mentioned, it's about energy. So you have to see your energy and don't push it over the limit, and be an optimal place for to speak or to be a guest on a podcast or as a speaking engagement, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so do we need virtual assistants to help us uh, with the guest? Does anyone do? I me personally, I don't have any assistants. I do everything myself. So do you think I need a virtual assistant for booking?
It depends. Is finding, proposing yourself, wrapping up all the details, is that the highest and best use of your time?
Me personally,
Yeah.
You mean looking for guests for my podcast?
No. For you to be on other podcasts. So what everybody needs to look at, it comes back to that E-Myth mentality.
Mm.
Is it the highest and best use of your time?
For
To
me to be
be
a guest on
finding
other.
talks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me now, actually, some people have asked me to do so, but I didn't see the benefit, at least for this time at this moment. But maybe
Right.
in the future or near future, when I think it could be good for me and for my time, and I have more time to be a guest instead of the host,
Yeah.
then yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you have your own podcast, organically, you get invited to be on podcasts.
Yeah.
So for all your listeners who do not have their own show, they may organically be invited to enough shows that's good for them. But for those that want to be strategic, like there are so many people that I know that they're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to be doing podcast guesting, and 2022 is the year where I'm going to go full out. I want to have 52 podcasts booked, interviews done by the end of 2022. When a person makes that decision and they are, on fire and they want to make it happen, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
To find all those places to get booked. And do the tangible work from all of that, the grunt work, if you will. So the people, if they're deciding whether they want to hire a VA or an agency such as mine, or there's a lot of other podcast booking agencies. I specialize in the speaking agency part. I specialize in booking platform marketing speakers, people who are speaking for free to grow their business. So people pay me to book them to speak for free, but they pull my fees out of their speaker budget because they know it's a brilliant marketing tool. So the podcast, that world, that speaking world, there are not many people that do what I do because it breaks the traditional speaker agency model. Normally they take 20 to 30% of the speaker fee they get on behalf of their client. So in that world, I don't have many other people that are doing this. Podcast booking world, there's a lot of podcast booking agencies, and some of them are like really good. They've been around for a long time. You, I'm sure, get approached by some of them. Every one of them I'm finding are very different in how they go about it. I know what we do completely different than others. We charge by booking, on production only, and it's something that our client has actually pre-approved before we even propose them to that show. So they're only paying to get booked on shows that they want to get booked on, not paying a monthly fee or package fee or anything like that. But we also don't do all the marketing for them, so everybody's different in what they offer. So I say that there's definitely, I had turned off everything. Sorry. I have podcast notes to turn everything off, and somehow I missed that. Note to self, by the way, and everybody else, make sure before you get interviewed for anything that you take care of all potential sounds. You shut off notifications on your computer. I take the dog collars off my dogs so they aren't making noise. I pick up every dog toy that makes noise. I close my blinds so that the dogs, their window to the world is closed so they do not see the squirrels that are digging and planting acorns in my flower boxes. I do the best I can to keep a clean environment for you, Hussein. And I forgot my alarm.
That's okay.
Okay. So do as I say, not as I do. Okay. No, actually, I did that just to demonstrate it for y'all. So you got to see what that's like. Okay. So I don't even know what I was talking about, but
so tell us about exactly.
So yes, some people want to do it. We'll want the support to have somebody else do the grunt work for you. Others, you don't need to. This is not rocket science. People do this. They book their own all the time. It's just, is it the best use of your time? That's just what you got to look at. And at least in the speaker world, there is a cachet to being represented by an agent when a group is reached out to and they don't have a speaker budget. So they're like, whoa, this person must be really professional because they've got an agent. Doesn't have quite as much weight when it comes into the podcast bookings, but there is weight. And people who are doing this, they also have a black book. Like we have a black book of groups that trust us They will book speaker after speaker with us because they know it would be the kiss of death to my business if we represented somebody that wasn't a good fit. Same thing with the podcast bookings. We're very particular. All of our clients are very carefully vetted. So there's some benefit to us being able to get people in more easily than reaching out themselves. And we have a streamlined system for keeping in touch. We're pretty tenacious, and we kind of dig in like an Alabama tick until we either get a yes or a no, or maybe later. Sometimes we have to cut bait, because we just cannot hear back from people, but we do our best for our clients. And I know that there are a lot of other people that offer similar services. So I highly recommend it. It doesn't have to be mine, but the support can be helpful.
Okay, so let us give the people who have never been a guest or start the podcast, do you think should they start looking for themselves to either start a podcast or be a guest, or should they look for people or agencies like yourself to start guesting and speaking engagement?
I would do both. I would do both. Because, well, I don't know about other agencies, but I know for us, we don't ask for exclusivity. We have no problem if somebody signs on with multiple agencies, as well as are out there booking themselves. When we work with clients, if they don't have to have a one sheet to work with us, because we set up their profile on our site and we direct our potential groups or shows directly to their profile. But if they do have a one sheet, in order for us to use it, we need an agency version, because it needs to point people to us. So, to book this, so-and-so, contact their agent. And then we have our contact information in there. But then I always say, have your own. So even people who have signed on with me, didn't have a one sheet, I encourage them to get a one sheet. And I have someone that I work a lot with that knows the way I like to have one sheets created. But I will always say, but don't just get an agency version for us, get one that has your contact information, because you're going to be meeting people, sharing about things yourself. You don't have to send them through us. Some of our clients do. Some of them, they don't want to deal with it. So if somebody says, hey, I'd like to have you speak, then they'll say, great, I'm going to have my agent contact you. And then they send the lead off to me, and I take care of it. Others, they're happy to take it themselves. So people, can do both. The main thing is to just get started. People too often put off the growth, put off the opportunities, put everything off because they feel like they have to have it perfect.
Yeah.
And how do we get better if we don't do it? Malcolm Gladwell talks about those 10,000 hours towards mastery. If you put 5 hours in, you're better than you were at the first hour. So we start small, but we be consistent, and we just do it. We make a commitment. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this strategically, and I'm just going to get out there. Even though I don't have a single podcast under my belt. If I reach out to this podcast and they don't know me from Adam or Eve, and I don't have this whole long list of places I've been interviewed on, but if I am sincere, if I am coming from a space of integrity and I really know my subject, they might take a chance on me. And this is where having a professional image is important, because again, if you've got a one sheet that it looks like you just whipped it together, as opposed to having one professionally done, or using something like Canva, but even then you still have to do a pretty good job even within Canva. Believe me, I've done some really crappy things on Canva. So you want to make sure that you're representing yourself really well.
Yeah.
So be seen, just embrace yourself, believe in yourself. I just can't stress that enough about your own mindset. If you have value to bring, if you have a message that's of value, have confidence that when you're reaching out, that they're going to be blessed by having you share that.
Yeah.
But don't have attachment to the answer. Oh my gosh. So many shows will not respond, or they're going to say no. And that's that. But I would say one of the best things you can possibly do before reaching out to someone is to learn about their show, learn about the group or the meeting, and make sure that you personalize your proposal. Because if you are just going to take your one sheet and you have a generic email and you send it out to tons of shows, they're going to know. You don't want to offer yourself to something that you're not a good fit for. Listen to it. Listen to at least 10 minutes of a couple of the shows, but ideally listen until the very end as well, because then you really get a sense for what that host is like. Also, they might have that surprise question at the end that they ask every client or every interviewee, like, what's your favorite ice cream or whatever, something really complicated, like, I don't know. Be prepared. If you listen to the end, you're going to know, you're going to have that answer down before they interview you.
Exactly.
But when you are offering yourself, you can say, I really feel I'm a good fit for your show because I have this expertise. I talk about this, and I especially resonated with Sally Jones on episode 239 when she was saying this, because I also talk about this, but from a very different viewpoint, because I come at it from this angle or something like that. The host, this, don't you want people who that they at least took the time to learn something about you and your show and what you're about.
Exactly.
So you're going to greatly increase your chances if you personalize your proposal to that potential group or show.
Exactly.
It's very important, and especially if you're just starting out, because it's hard. It's like getting a job when you're 16 years old and nobody wants to hire you because you don't have experience, right? Well, how do I get experience?
No. It's not the 16 years old. It's the people who graduated university and colleges.
Oh, yes. Yes.
They're saying, oh, we need an experience. How I am going to get experience when nobody's hiring me?
Yeah. Makes me want to sing like Mama, you take a chance on me. Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you, but we are talking about podcast guesting and speaking. Sometimes there is like fear, I think, especially if you're talking about speaking. When we are talking about speaking, it could be in front of people, a lot of people. So do you think that people who could be, I don't want to say afraid, but they are actually. So do you think they can start at ease with podcasting maybe? Is it a better way to do that?
I think podcast guesting is a brilliant way to launch a speaking career, or launch a tactical speaking, to grow your business plan. There's something about being able to just dialogue with someone, and also it helps you get your material down, because the conversations that we have with people, if you again record it, okay, now this is being recorded, so I get to hear the end result, okay, but if you're doing a talk and someone just invited you and you're not sure, you haven't been doing a lot of it, again, record it, because this is how you add more to your talk, and what the key points are, what's of most interest. If it's a show where they allow people to do comments and things like that, you pay attention to what people are asking, because that's how you can kind of build your talk, your signature talk, if you will. And the best thing to do to get over the fear is just flipping do it.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't say it's easy for me to say, because I will be completely honest. I would rather chew glass than to speak. And I don't like to share that often, because I'm a speaker's agent and I'm telling everyone that they should be speaking to grow their business. Who doesn't do that? Me, because I really don't like to speak. But I do it because I believe in what I have to say.
Yeah.
And if I can help one person grow their business through speaking because of something I've shared, if I can help one person who's going to get a really powerful message out there that might change someone else's life, because that's another reason why I do this. Like for my clients, I believe in the message every one of them share. I can help them get that message out to more people. I can help more people improve their memory when I book Chester Santos, International Man of Memory. I can help more people change their self-talk when I book Stephen Campbell, who talks about, our mind and our the fact that our brain believes everything we tell, like all these different things that my clients speak on. I can help more people get that message, and that makes me feel like I'm making a difference in the world. So when a person has their own message that they feel can make a difference in the world, we come back to that fact that I feel like it's a disservice to not be out there and share it.
Yeah.
But get support around it.
Yeah.
Toastmasters is amazing, especially for people that are struggling with the comfort level of speaking. You can join the National Speakers Association, another great organization to help people with their speaking. And that's really more for people that want to be professionally paid speakers or really be strategic with their speaking. You can hire a coach to help you with it. You can just attend all kinds of, there's so many free things out there on the internet now. You just go to YouTube for support as a speaker or podcast guest. There's a gazillion things out there, but just do it.
Definitely. So because ultimately success comes from the things that we actually fear, I think so. A lot of it, because people are stuck in these certain places because they are not willing to go the extra step to change things, to get more business or to get more growth or to get more money or whatever it is that they want. Yeah. So speaking of this last question, but this is not the last one actually. So speaking of resources, do you think there are, let's say, good books on being a good speaker or a good podcast guest?
Yes. Actually, I'm going to give a plug for someone that people might think is a competitor. Thomas Schwab just came out with this book, Podcast Guest Profits. Grow your business with a targeted interview strategy. It's great. I think it's wonderful. There's a lot of stuff out there. First off, I do have a resources page on my site. So if someone goes to my site, accessspeakers.biz, super easy. I've got a more tab. And then in there, I've got a resources page. Within that, I do have some books that I do recommend. They're out there. There's video tutorials. There's a gal, Ready Entrepreneur, I believe, is the podcast, Case Lane. She has a series. I want to say it's her podcast, like number 92 to 97, something like that. It's just a series of being a podcast guest that I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who book people on podcasts that do trainings and have content out there. If you find Thomas Schwab from Interview Valet, I know he does stuff LinkedIn Lives all the time where you can learn more about that. There are Facebook groups, there are LinkedIn groups, there are podcast collab club that you and I were talking about before we hit record. I really like what this gal's doing, and you can connect with other podcast guests as well as podcasters, but you just learn from each other. And use common sense. Just use common sense. If you are promoting yourself to a podcast host, just try to imagine yourself as a podcast host. What would you want someone to send to you? It's common sense. How would you want them to treat the relationship? I'll tell you, one of the best ways to be the type of podcast guest that gets invited back or gets referred to other shows, because podcasters, y'all know each other. Podcasters know podcasters. Okay, so don't be one of those people that the podcast host says, yes, I'm interested. Please send me, this, and then they have to ask you again. Come on, value their time. Make sure that when you are being interviewed that you're giving full value, because everyone who's listening, even right now, to what I'm saying, I'm doing my very best to make certain that anything that I say is going to be of value to you, because I don't want you to be at the end of it. Like if you're like me, I will stay through the end of a bad movie just because I've got to see how the end is, no matter how terrible it is. I don't want that to happen where somebody's just sticking it out to see if there's something at the end where I redeemed myself. I want them to be getting value the entire time. So just be thinking about that when you're doing the interview. And how can you bless your host? So you will, it's funny, like I'm talking about things that I'm going to be doing. So I need your snail mail address, by the way. I send a private handwritten thank you note to every show that I'm on. If I do a talk, I handwrite a thank you note to the person that booked me, that speaker chair, that meeting planner, whatever. I also, by the way, will always say, do you know of any other groups or organizations or podcasters that you think I'd be a good fit for? Okay, so this is how you build this, and you get more referrals. And in a genuine way, I'm not pitching myself. I'm genuinely asking, but you want to do this and still bless the other person. The other thing is that I will, oh, that reminds me. Can we take a quick picture? Do you mind if I share one socially between of you and I?
Yeah, how are we going to do that?
So no. I'm just going to do a screenshot.
Okay.
So just smile. Okay, so screenshot taken. What I will do is I will be sharing my screenshot socially and thanking you for being such a great host, because you have been.
Thank you.
And I am going to tag you, and I'm going to encourage people to check out your show, to subscribe, to rate it. Okay. And I'm going to say, and my interview is coming out. I'll let you know when it's out. Now, if you give me an idea, if it's going to be June or whatever, you give me a general idea, then I will put that in the show, in my comment. But I'm going to start getting you visibility, because I know that ultimately at the end of the day, what you want is you want to be of value to your listeners. You want to increase your subscriber list. You want to increase your downloads, your ratings and reviews, right? So how can I, as your guest, help you with that? Well, I can help you through encouraging people that I have some influence over, my social sphere, encouraging them to check out your show. So I'll do it before it's even been aired. And then after it's aired, can you get me the link? I'm sorry?
I mean, that what you said is a great gesture of someone who's being collaborative and engaged.
Yes.
Having actually knowing the business or the podcasting or the speaking, let's say, atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, the golden rule. Do unto others, okay? And just be nice. So if I can help get you visibility, you are probably going to remember me. And when you have networking, or you meet with another podcaster or whatever, and they're saying something that I might come to your mind, and you might be like, oh my gosh, you got to check out Anastasia, because not only was she a great guest on my show and gave a lot of value, but she also shared it socially, because you all want that. Yeah, exactly. I would, if I was a host, I would want that.
You actually should get your own show, actually.
No, I don't want to do the work you do.
So
no. No, this is like, for me, no, I will be a guest. I have no interest whatsoever in doing my own show. I encourage people to, but I'm not going to do it.
Okay, so give us the last takeaway for this episode, Anastasia.
Let's see, last takeaway. Let's talk speaking, even within podcast guesting, but especially with speaking. One of the things I like to remind people of is that you don't have to be perfect. And it kind of comes back to this idea of people holding off from opportunities because they are uncomfortable. They feel like they're not a good speaker, or whatever it might be. One thing I love is that we can be authentic now. If there's been a lot of really great things that have come as a result of this pandemic. one of the things that I've seen is the authenticity that people are allowing into their lives and feel comfortable in being more authentic than before, because, we've all seen, live BBC news coverage with the guy talking and the kids come running in and the wife's coming in and grabbing the kids, or people's cats are walking across their desk, or, God knows what. All these things have allowed us to be more authentic because we're in this together, right?
Mm.
So we can be authentic when you are speaking. If you totally flub things, just so what? Just say, I can't believe I just said that.
Speaking for myself, talking about that, when I started this, I published certain episodes by myself, and when I wanted to have guests in the show, if I am looking back, I now have interviewed so far, I think more than 50, I think maybe 75 until now, and they are coming every week. So when I look back at the first episode, it's totally different when it's like after the 10th episode. It's different.
Absolutely. It's the mastery. It's the mastery that comes with it.
Yeah, it's different now, and in a year's time, it's going to be even better. I hope so.
Absolutely. I'll be better too.
You need time, you need to practice, you need to do it, and the best way to practice is to actually do the thing.
Just do the thing. Don't worry. Be authentic. If you flub your words, just laugh it off and say, I can't believe I just said that, or reverse that. I meant to say just the opposite. Be yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
But the other thing is, keep in mind, we watch movies, and I'm one of those people that when I go to the theater, I stay to the very end. Drives my family nuts. But I do, and I've seen so many things that nobody else in the theater sees, because they all walk out and that they have some other little bloopers or some dedication or something. But we've all seen bloopers from movies, and these are professional actors, professional. This is what they do for a living, and they flub their lines over and over and over again. The only difference between them and us is they get to have a director that says, cut, retake, take 239, right? We don't get that in life because we're on a stage or we're doing a live Zoom. We don't get that retake. So we just have to accept the fact that they are not perfect. We are not perfect. Just be ourselves and know that we have value. Exactly. And we have a message, and we need to get it out, whatever it might be. And it's okay to say, don't ever start saying I'm nervous, by the way. That's they'll teach you that in all professional speaking. Don't tell them you're nervous at all, because then you really look like a schmo who's not a pro.
Then you start
you want to do
sweating.
Yeah, just know that I can't believe I just said that. So what I meant to say was this, or I just had an outer body experience. Let me come back and let me try to pick up where I think I left off. Whatever. Just be honest.
But like you mentioned, the movies, the problem is that people sometimes see they don't see the actual things. They always see the edited stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. They need to, like you mentioned, it's time for all to be authentic as possible. And I do love sometimes watch the bloopers of the movies. Actually, a lot of the people who are watching them, especially the comedic ones, the comedic movies.
Yeah.
If you watch the bloopers, actually they are better than the movie.
I know. Yeah, I agree.
but they cut it out because it's not maybe in the flow of the episode, or it's not in the flow of the movie itself. Yeah. So awesome episode, Anastasia. So tell us, where can people get in touch with you?
Well, easiest, just go to my website. It's just accessspeakers.biz. My email address is just my first name in front of it. By the way, little pro tip, y'all have a branded email. Don't be, susieq@gmail.com, because that does not speak professional to the world. Okay. Have a branded email, but in particular, if you have a website, let the back part of your email be your web address, so people already know what your website is just by knowing your email address. So one thing that I would say is, if anybody's interested, I do a monthly free virtual Q&A. It's a chance to pick the brain of a speaker's agent and ask questions It's different every month. I never know what people are going to ask. It is not a pitch fest. I don't do that. But it's just full value and it's a lot of fun. So I do have links to all that. If you just go to my site, everything's there. And I do have a resources page. I'm adding more to it every month. I keep finding more resources that I can put in there. But more than anything, I just want to encourage people to get out there and do it, and just don't wait until it's perfect and you feel like you're ready. Just feel the fear and do it. And those who maybe it's not fear that's stopping them, but they just don't have the time. I get that. Then hire a VA or somebody to help you. But it really is a powerful way to gain visibility. And from an SEO perspective or Google juice, it's off the charts now because everything's digital. So the more your name is out there, in the great Ethernet, it's just going to help you be found when people are looking for whatever your subject matter is.
Definitely. Well, thank you with much gratitude for this episode. Thank you, Anastasia.
Thank you, Hussein. I so appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to sharing about it socially and being able to hear it and letting other people hear it as well. So I appreciate everything that you do, because like I said, I have no interest in being a host. It's a lot of work. So thanks for doing the hard work for the rest of us.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Take care.